Low down for him because he's had 3 pole positions already this year. Schumacher is conscious of the fact that there are 150,000 Germans here, when there was a possibility that they were even threatening to set fire to the forests and block the roads in.
Well, there's the same reason that sitting on a straight at approaching 200 miles an hour doesn't demand a great deal of physical effort, and so we shouldn't see too much trouble. The first stop roundabout between lap 12 and lap 16, which they should be disadvantaged at. This is a horsepower circuit. They have less horsepower than the Ferraris or the Williams cars. What they do have is a very good chassis balance. They are easier on...
Carefully indeed when he starts from 4th on the grid behind Jean Alesi. Formula One to see 2 scarlet Ferraris at the front of a starting grid again. Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi, Damon Hill, then Michael Schumacher. The Ferraris have got the new powerful V12 engine. The Renault RS6B is the new version in the Williams, and I have no doubt that Ford have worked very hard on the Z-Tech V8 in Michael Schumacher's car. But remember, as ever, first into this corner, particularly if it's a Ferrari, is going to have an advantage because the Ferraris have got bags of grunt, and that is Gerhard Berger, visor peeling away into position. The next thing you will see, as ever, as the safety car comes, is the man with the green flag. And the lights, there's the man with the green flag. Between 4 and 7 seconds after the red, the green will go and the German Grand Prix will be on. It's on. See whether it was Pierluigi Martini or Michele Alboreto, but my guess is that there are at least 5 cars involved in that start line incident for the German Grand Prix. And the spare car, that's Jean Todt, the boss of Ferrari. He's telling the Ferrari mechanics to get the spare car ready. That is one of the Jordans in the background, and I'm guessing that that's Blundell's Tyrrell Yamaha, because I can't see the number or any identification mark. But meantime, Gerhard Berger, not knowing, of course, is significantly leading Michael Schumacher. They won't have seen any flags yet. And Katayama is ahead of Damon Hill. This is all a bit academic because I have little doubt that the race will be stopped. There are officials all over the starting grid area, and there is still the Minardi. Now, it's conceivable that the safety car will go out. You've seen Damon Hill slow right down there. And coming through to complete the first lap. Now, let's see what happens. Well, Gerhard Berger goes through at undiminished speed, and the yellow flags, now the yellow flags are being waved. That means the race is not being stopped. So it's a race between Michael Schumacher in second place, Gerhard Berger. Katayama is behind in third place. Neither of the 2 Williams have appeared as yet, and this is very bad news. And there's a Williams into the pits as I talk to you. It's David Coulthard has pulled into the pits. There's the proof. And I noticed that one of the Williams has got a bent front wing, and that is him. So the German Grand Prix in some ways is almost over before it begins, and Damon Hill in the background. So that's the second Williams in, and their race is effectively run because the others are streaming round. Coulthard is still in the pits. That is the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen. And to the delight of the German fans here, it is the Austrian hero Gerhard Berger and their German hero Michael Schumacher who are leading on lap 2, both of them well ahead of Ukyo Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, 4.5 seconds in fact at the end of the first lap. And if the Ferrari is not reliable, then Schumacher is already within sight of another Grand Prix victory, and the best of all for him, because as I've said before, it is on his home circuit. He's right up behind Gerhard Berger now, trying to look for a way through on lap 2. And at the end of lap 1, as they come into the stadium, they're incidentally pulling De Cesaris's Sauber Mercedes off in front of me. The German flags, a forest of them all round.
What the most extraordinary start to a Grand Prix, to have what looks like about 12 cars eliminated. W.R. Schumacher right with Gerhard Berger there. 12 cars eliminated on that first lap chaos. It looked like we may well see a repeat of that, a replay, a slow motion replay. I'm sure we will. It looked like it was Pierluigi Martini, 2/3 of the way down the grid, who got out of shape, and of course chaos ensued from that. but also I think there were other incidents. We saw Mika Häkkinen come unstuck, go flying off the road very quickly indeed, and of course David Coulthard lost his wing, but that really has completely desolated the field. We're going to get a very different race now as a result. I must admit, I thought it was inevitable that the red flag would come out, but the marshals have worked with tremendous speed. They've cleared up most of the debris already, and we've just seen waved yellows all the way around, of course, the incident area here along the main start-finish straight. So we're left here with a real battle. The front runners here, Berger, Schumacher and Katayama.
Jean Alesi appears to be out of the race. We know Häkkinen is, we know Blundell is, we know Pierluigi Martini is, and on lap 3, a lead. Schumacher second, Mika Häkkinen walking into the garage. He crashed in the Williams Renault. Gerhard Berger with Schumacher right behind him. Panis is 4th, Bernard is 5th, so the Ligiers are 4th and 5th, an incredible development. Jos Verstappen in the second, Benetton is in 6th position. Gianni Morbidelli in the footwork is 7th ahead of his teammate Christian Fittipaldi. Eric Comas is in 9th place and Olivier Beretta is in 10th position, and Schumacher is pushing for the lead into the chicane behind the Ferrari. Now he's got one of the most experienced Grand Prix campaigners of all in the...
and that's interesting in itself. Berger, I suspected, was going to stop twice. That means his fuel should be at least as light as that of Schumacher, though, is being able to pull out and actually go by as they're accelerating down the straights. What he may be able to do is to close up, use the slingshot and pull out into the braking areas. Incidentally, this is the stadium, this is where Schumacher is fast. Watch him close right up there on Gerhard Berger. We've got another half a mile of twisty section before he'll go out to the long, fast back section. But looking a quick reflection down the field here, it seems that 11 cars are out. As we said, this has completely decimated the field. A lot of front runners out of it. But I think we are in line to see some very good comeback drives from Damon Hill, who's a lap behind, and David Coulthard as well. Both the Williams drivers, I think, are going to have a big fight, but it's going to be good action to watch on the way.
Right, well, let's try and identify who those 11 drivers are as you watch Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher fighting for the lead on lap 5. Mark Blundell is out. You're with Schumacher at the present moment. Mika Häkkinen is out. Zanardi is out. Johnny Herbert appears to be out. I can't see either of the Jordan cars because Barrichello and Irvine are both out. Both the LaRousses, Beretta and Comas, are still running. Pierluigi Martini is out of the German Grand Prix, as is his teammate Michele Alboreto. Both the Ligiers are still running. We know that Jean Alesi is out of the race. Andrea de Cesaris I don't see, nor do I see Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but both the Simtex are still running. So again, these are the retirements already on lap 5 out of 45. Jean Alesi, Mark Blundell, Mika Häkkinen, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Eddie Irvine, Rubens Barrichello, Johnny Herbert, Andrea de Cesaris, Pierluigi Martini, Sandro Zanardi and Michele Alboreto. I have never seen a Grand Prix like this.
We just saw a glimpse of Martin Brundle there, and he is somebody who I think could well benefit, to his great surprise, I'm sure, from all of that chaos. He's currently in 10th place at the end of the last lap, but ahead of him are a whole level there. So Brundle currently in 10th, but I think the stewards probably... now here we go again, and look, now that was now that looked like maybe Coulthard. That's where Coulthard lost his wing. Coulthard touched Häkkinen on the way into this. Have another look. Let's look at the front. The back we can't see. Häkkinen gets very crossed up. Look, Häkkinen on the left of your picture, about 3 rows back. Forget what's behind that, but look at Häkkinen down the left-hand side. Coulthard to his left. Häkkinen moves across. Well, I'm afraid Häkkinen, a little bit like at Monaco, Häkkinen, I believe he moved across to the left. He tried to take a slightly wider entry to the first corner. He didn't make it because Coulthard was there. Coulthard lost his wing. Häkkinen lost his race. I'm afraid I think that Häkkinen should have known at that point that Coulthard was alongside, because as soon as he moved to the left, he touched. So clearly, Coulthard did not actually drive into the back of Häkkinen there.
So now let's start looking at what might happen ahead. You can see how close Schumacher is to Berger. You can see how hard the young German is trying to get past the Austrian in front of him. Now, we imagine that it's quite likely that Gerhard Berger will come in for 2 tar stops. It's quite possible that Michael Schumacher will do the same thing. and that is Ukyo Katayama. He was in third position. He spun to a standstill. Has he affected the suspension at all? Is he going to be able to get out of the gravel track because he tried to drive through it? You're with him now, and that will mean that Olivier Panis will come up to third position. It will almost certainly mean that Eric Bernard will come up into fourth position, and still through the heat haze towards us at some 200 miles an hour on the 7th lap out of 45, Gerhard Berger quite calmly looking in his mirror.
Yes, that really did look like pretty dozy driving from Katayama there. He was some 7 seconds behind Schumacher. Clearly should have recognised that he could not have caught Schumacher, and 11 seconds ahead of Panis. He was not really under pressure. He's got, let's see if we can see what happens here. There we are, he goes straight on. He's trying simply there, too hard there, round he goes. But now he's in a very vulnerable position there. But when he came back onto the track, he, instead of trying to do a neat spin turn and keep it on the track, he drove off into the gravel and was very lucky to be able to continue indeed from that. And he'll pick up a lot of rubbish on his tyres, and that'll slow him down significantly. And really no pressure. He's actually coming into the pit
37 seconds behind them. Preserve his tyres. He's got the new engine. I was talking to the Ferrari people before the race began, and they were undecided then about whether to use the new engine or not. Not because it lacks power, not because it lacks performance, but because they do not have much experience with it. Now Schumacher is right under the wing, and I forecasted he's going to make a challenge for the lead. He comes out behind Berger, who just moves across that bit. Schumacher tries to go around the outside, but into the chicane, he'll never get through there, and I noticed that there's gravel on the apex.
Guess what Schumacher tried to do there, having failed to get by on the inside when Berger closed the door, he then swept to the outside to try and get a wide exit to allow him to have a faster entry. And he's looking, I must say, he's looking really as if he's all over Schumacher, all over Berger. There's nothing Schumacher can do now on this next stadium section. There is only one line through it. There are no significant braking areas, and he will have to get position through this two right-handers we've got coming up now. 80 miles an hour through each of these, up through this is the second one, then on to the main start and finish straight, up to 180 miles an hour at the end of this. Back down to fourth gear, through this first right-hander. This is where Häkkinen went off at 130 miles an hour. Up on the curb on the exit if it's Gerhard Berger. And now this is where Häkkinen needs to be right in the toe, because at the end of this straight is the first chicane. This is the best overtaking opportunity, but you can see, look at that Ferrari horsepower. That is Ferrari horsepower, and actually that looks too much like Ferrari horsepower. I'm surprised that Schumacher wasn't a little closer, but I think what happened there is actually Schumacher was not close enough to Berger out of that previous corner, and he actually must have been hoping that he would be able to build up points on Michael Schumacher at this power-hungry circuit and close the gap between himself and the German before Schumacher has to face his 2-race ban and lose a potential 20 points. But lap 9 now, you can see the leaders, there they are. Third is Panis, fourth in Bernard, both in Ligier Renaults. Fifth is Verstappen in the second Benetton. Sixth is Morbidelli in the Footwork. Martin Brundle is seventh in the McLaren. Morbidelli's teammate Fittipaldi is eighth. Eric Comas is ninth in the Larousse. His teammate Beretta is 10th. David Brabham and his teammate Gounon in the Simtex are 11th and 12th. David Coulthard is 13th on the same lap. Hill is now up to 14th ahead of Ukyo Katayama. They've both been lapped, and Katayama is 15th. Now once again, Schumacher too far behind Berger. He will do nothing on this next straight. He won't even keep in the toe, I don't think. But I don't know that this really matters at this stage. If I was Schumacher, I would not be too concerned. V12 Ferrari engine, some half a second faster than its predecessor that was raced at Silverstone. So Ferrari's fast, but potentially frail. We'll have to see what happens to Gerhard Berger. But the exciting news is that Damon Hill is lapping 2.5 seconds at least. I've just seen a faster lap from Berger. That was the hesitation. But Damon Hill was 3 seconds faster than the front runners of Berger and Schumacher. And a quick calculation is that he would need to actually be 4 seconds faster to have there's John Alesi there. Clearly, it doesn't look too tired. No great surprise. He's only done 1 lap. And coming back down into this third chicane. And really, I think Schumacher's going to have to wait until the pit stop if he's going to have a chance of safely going by. And it would be silly of Schumacher to risk anything at this stage. I know he's in an aggressive fighting mood, but he really would be silly to do anything to risk his race, because I believe with the way he's crawling all over Gerhard Berger at this stage of the race, providing the Benetton stays reliable, a second quicker than David Coulthard, but he would actually need to be 4 seconds faster than Berger and Schumacher to have a chance of making up that tremendous deficit. We heard from Tony Jardine, 3 minutes and 3/4. That's a lot of time to make up. Too much for Damon Hill, I'm sure, but it may be that David Coulthard could be the real beneficiary here, because he is also flying, and he is just 1 minute 30 behind Berger and Schumacher.
Lapping 2 seconds faster than the race leaders that you are looking at, with Schumacher seemingly content now to stay where he is. He will be taking a tremendous buffeting, of course, from the Ferrari's airflow in front of him, but he won't want to drop back, because he will certainly not want to give Gerhard Berger the opportunity to rest his engine. Jean Alesi, who must have hoped for so much, talking to Jean Todt, the team manager. Cruel luck for Alesi, second on the grid. That's the first time he had started from the front row in a Grand Prix. Getting better and better. As I said earlier on, it was way back in 1990 that there was a Ferrari in pole position, let alone another one. Brundle are 5th and 6th, because Martin Brundle has now moved ahead of Gianni Morbidelli and is starting to make up time and distance in the McLaren. Brundle lapping a bit slower than the leaders, but he is gaining on the people immediately in front of him, Verstappen and Bernard. So, coming through to complete lap 11, into the stadium in front of this enormous 150,000 strong crowd. They're all in these massive concrete grandstands which overlook the stadium. You can hardly see anything if you get into the forest legs, because the pine trees there are tall, impenetrable, and virtually no spectators are allowed in. So there are the leaders, and Mark Blundell, whose race did not last very long in the Tyrrell, is with Tony Jardine.
Bit of disappointment for you after such a great weekend in practice for Tyrrell. Tell us exactly what happened.
Well, I got off the line reasonably well. Me and Coulthard were quite close to each other, but Mika Häkkinen, he just came from nowhere down the inside. I think he was going too fast and too tight for the first corner, and basically came across the face of us, and I think Barrichello then hit me up the backside. I mean, as you say, it's a great shame. I'm sure the Tyrrell Yamaha would have had a good result, either one of us, but it's wiped out half the field. I mean, the race is not really a race now.
Are you going to be having a word with him, do you think, afterwards?
I already spoke to the guy when he came back across the track, and as far as he can see, he didn't do anything wrong by the looks of it. He said, I don't know what happened, so, you know.
What happened to your teammate's car? Katayama's out as well now, do you know?
It looks like he had a sticking throttle, which, of course, that's a problem at Silverstone. I don't really know, but it sounds like a sticking throttle, which is a real shame, because the guys have put a lot of work in this weekend, and, you know, we'll have to wait till the next race, but I'm sure we're going to be there.
Thank you very much, Mark. Hard luck.
Bye.
Well, it does indeed seem that, of course, Katayama went off there not because he was qualifying position, and Schumacher's in the pits.
Yes, Michael Schumacher into the pits on lap 12. Now, why is he into the pits? If he's coming in for a tyre change, I would be very surprised for it to be this early, in which case he will certainly be having a 2-stop race. And that is precisely why he is in, and this of course gives Gerhard Berger the opportunity to increase his lead. Now, is Michael Schumacher going to get out before Olivier Panis? And the answer is no, because the Ligier has gone through, and the totally unexpected has happened. Into the pits, incidentally, comes Martin Brundle, and Schumacher rejoins with Berger now in the lead. Olivier Panis is up into second place. I'm not sure about Eric Bernard, because I was watching other things.
Well, that was just the right thing there for Michael Schumacher to do. I'm sure that he was on a 2-stop strategy. We did think that would make the first stop between lap 12 and lap 16. Pretty troubled qualifying time, actually, qualifying in a pretty lowly position there of 19th after the two qualifying sessions. But Schumacher made the right move, and it remains to be seen whether or not Berger needs to come in the next few laps, in which case that will mean he's going to make 2 stops, or whether he can actually hang on until mid-distance.
Well, now you're looking at the battle for third, in effect, because Olivier Panis has moved up to second. There in the blue car with the red patch on his helmet is Eric Bernard, who is in third place. Behind him is Jos Verstappen, who moves over, does he, and lets his teammate through. He does. So Michael Schumacher, having made his tyre stop, is now on lap 13. He is in 4th place, having passed Verstappen. He's setting about Eric Bernard. It won't take him very long to pass him because Schumacher has been lapping in about at least a second faster than the Ligier. Now I expect him to come up behind the rear wing of the Ligier Renault, pull out, go through and up into third place. He's on the inside, he just sprints through. Beautiful bit of driving. That's the corner that claims so many people in practice. And the car coming towards us now is Parnis. Behind him in third place is Schumacher with the red flashes. Behind him in fourth place is Eric Bernard. Right behind him is Jos Verstappen. Martin Brundle has come into the pits and taken on new tyres. Here's a replay. 14 now. Berger leads. Parnis is second. There's Schumacher third. Bernard fourth. Verstappen fifth. Brundle is sixth. Morbidelli is now 1 minute 26 seconds behind the leaders, and he was 1 minute 39 not so long ago. He's in 13th place on the same lap. Damon Hill is going extremely quick, but is still a lap adrift. There are only 14 out of the 26 starters left on lap 14. So that is Berger. He is leading, and Eddie Irvine is in the pit lane with Tony Jardine.
Eddie, another very short race for you. Tell us exactly what happened.
Well, I didn't make a great start, and Häkkinen made a better one than Coulthard, and there's a bit of a gap up the inside of Coulthard. Bit of a risky gap to go for, and Häkkinen went for it. And then next thing, we're coming down towards the corner, and Häkkinen either loses it on his own or he gets touched or something, and he shoots across to the left of the track sideways, and there's just nowhere for the guys behind to go, and we all end up in the sand trap on the outside.
Do you think there'll be a steward's inquiry?
Well, I don't know. I think it needs to be looked at and see actually what happened, because I'm sitting very low. I kind of...
A lot of unhappy drivers.
Sorry?
A lot of unhappy drivers.
Yeah, well, I think the race should have been stopped also. Like, there was 11 cars out at the first corner, so I think it's bad for the spectators and everybody involved not to have stopped the race at that point. It seems a strange decision.
Eddie, thanks very much and hard luck.
Okay, thanks.
You are watching the new second place man, Michael Schumacher. How long would it take for the Ferrari to come in, stop, take on new tyres and rejoin, and would Schumacher retake the lead? Take the lead.
Well, I certainly would have expected Gerhard Berger to come into the pits on this lap. He hasn't. He's just gone by the end of his 15th lap there, and that does indicate, bearing in mind it's a 45-lap race, and normally these drivers and teams have a strategy of stopping at exactly third, and in comes Verstappen there. Verstappen coming into the pits, again the right thing for him to do, because he was being held up by the Ligier. The Ligier with its Renault engine is very quick indeed down the straights, about 10 miles an hour faster than Verstappen in fact. Into the pits he comes. Very difficult as a driver, you know, to judge. We had a quick glimpse of it from Verstappen. Oh, and fuel! That's the first time we've had a fuel splash. Oh my goodness me!
Well, now, just let's keep calm. There are a lot of fire officials down there, and the fire is already out. And remember, when Gerhard Berger had his car burst into flames in Imola and he was sitting in the car unconscious, the fire marshals still got him out in plenty of time. And Verstappen should not have been in that car for more than a couple of seconds or so. They have medical air piped through to their helmets in case of a problem like this. And you can see the Benetton down there, and I cannot see Verstappen in it, so they've got him out safely. But that's the first time that the thing that everybody has feared since the reintroduction of refueling has happened, a blowback as a result, I guess, and I hope I'm not maligning him, the mechanic involved with the fueler pulling out the actual nozzle just a fraction too soon after he'd had the signal, or maybe a fraction before he'd had the signal, but for whatever, fire has been put out, and that's a good thing because it indicates that all the safety procedures here at Hockenheim have worked immaculately in that situation. And with Verstappen out, the situation on lap 17, as you look at the lone Ferrari, is that he, Gerhard Berger, is leading the German Grand Prix. Replay.
Right, there was the replay there. Now, when the nozzle came out of that was supposed to seal it. The fuel splashed, and see how 3 seconds later, that tremendous inferno there. Verstappen in the middle of it must have been absolutely terrified. I saw him get out of the car after the fire marshals did a superb job And in fact, the team have their own mechanics there. They're all in fireproof clothing. They all have extinguishers. They put the fire out very quickly indeed. But dreadfully frightening moment for Verstappen. The first time, as we've said, it's happened this year, but proves that it can happen. But those couplings should have self-sealed. That should not have been able to happen. That fuel is under a modest amount of pressure, and we saw that what must have been 2 or 3 gallons there spraying out, and clearly with the heat that surrounds these cars, it was virtually...
Maybe I misunderstood the situation, or maybe something went wrong. Well, no doubt about the fact that something went wrong, but thank heavens everything has turned out well. And Gerhard Berger now, is he coming into the pits? It doesn't look like it, actually. Michael Schumacher really trying. He's really pushing that Benetton now.
And the reason that Schumacher's trying so hard is that he will now know that Berger, in fact, is not on a 2-stop routine. He's only going to stop once. I'm sure that's the conclusion, unless there's something that we don't know, but it's now lap 17. Berger's lapping quickly as well. That's what's particularly impressive. And I'd expect Berger to stay out now until about lap 20, lap 22, before he comes in for his one solitary stop. And it's really the only time we shall know which of these two strategies, that Schumacher stopping twice, Berger stopping once, was the better, will be round about 2/3 distance, round about lap 30, lap 35, and we see how they compare on the track at that time. Now, having said that, we're looking at Ferrari pit. Looks like they are ready with tyres.
Well, David Coulthard, who incidentally is just left the pits, is the fastest man on the course so far. There he is getting away. His fastest lap is also the fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 46.2. Obviously a great deal slower than the fastest lap last year. The lap record held by Riccardo Patrese, 1 minute 41. So it's a good 5 seconds dynamics, and that is Schumacher locking up again. He's not doing his new set of tyres any good.
Yes, he locked up there on the inside of the hairpin. That's the Sachs curve. He locked up the left front wheel. It's a left-hand tyres. The wheels come completely off the ground momentarily. So it's a fact it's very easy to lock a wheel, and providing it is lightly loaded, as it will be actually turning into the corner, there's little chance of a flat spot. And by that we mean the fact that when the tyre's not turning and it scrapes along the ground with a wheel locked, it'll just wear that rubber down incredibly quickly. So a driver really has to avoid that kind of thing, but I think that will not prove a significant problem for Schumacher.
Has been in Grand Prix racing for 10 years, over 10 years, because he started off with the ATS team as long ago as 1984. A lot of Grand Prix wins behind him now, 8 of them with Ferrari. He was with Ferrari previously before he joined McLaren with Ayrton Senna, for whom he had 3 victories. And this is a very obvious sign that the Ferrari team are going to bring Gerhard Berger in, I would guess, at the end of his 20th lap, which he is on now. And Michael Schumacher is in trouble. Did you see that burst of smoke from the back of the car? Jonathan, your view?
Well, his engine sounded dreadful. Just as he came past us in the commentary box, the engine sounded dreadful. I am sure Michael Schumacher has a terminal engine problem there.
Well, he's been forcing, yes, that is Schumacher, to win his home Grand Prix at a World Championship event. And Michael Schumacher looks to me as though he is virtually touring in now. Something very dramatic has happened at the back of the car. I'm not going to say it was engine because I don't know, but you're looking back at him now. And he's banging his fist in sheer agonised frustration. And that was Olivier Panis in the Ligier Renault passing him to move up to second. When was Ligier last second in a Grand Prix? I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I haven't got that sort of computer mind, but it was a long time ago. And Frank Durney, who interestingly enough, was at Benetton, Michael Schumacher's race engineer, until he took command of the technical aspects of Ligier only in the British Grand Prix. And Gerhard Berger is coming in to the pits. Now, he's safe. He will have had a message from the Ferrari radio system to say that Michael Schumacher is out, because they can watch television just as easily as we can. And you are watching race leader Gerhard Berger, who is now 32 seconds ahead of Olivier Panis, making what may be his only tyre stop.
It's quite a long stop there for Gerhard Berger. Looks like they may have... No, he's okay. He is putting a lot of fuel on board that car. In fact, he's for sure lost about 6 seconds, 6 or 7 seconds, though. He should have had, I think, about 9 or 10 seconds worth of fuel. He stopped on lap 20. That's as we thought, for making just one stop. But some kind of a problem. I don't think it'll cause him any significant problem in terms of the result, as Schumacher comes into the pits now, and that surely must mean retirement for Schumacher.
And it's a very, very close thing for first place at the moment, because as Gerhard Berger drove out of the pit lane, thundering past the commentary boxes, which are on the start and finish area, went Olivier Panis. But during the race, Berger was lapping, of course, a lot quicker, and this indeed is the bitter sight for the people in the grandstands and for the Benetton team of Michael Schumacher, who has won so many races this year that even with his penalty after Britain, he's leading the World Championship by 27 points, retiring from the German Grand Prix.
Yes, Michael Schumacher there shaking his head in disbelief. He cannot believe it. Home Grand Prix, car in tremendous shape, confident in qualifying, and here we are actually. That's Gerhard Berger simply pulling away now from the Ligiers. They actually have not stopped, and that's why they are so close to Gerhard Berger, but the Ligiers are going to have to make one stop, both on the same strategy, and I think we can expect them to come into the pits within the next 2 or 3 laps. But there he is, the German. Incidentally, this is the first failure, I believe, that the Ford Zetec engine has had all year. The Benetton really has been a model of reliability. Verstappen's powdered fire extinguisher, powdered covered car in the background. And incidentally, if you wondered what the puff of smoke was, or the puff of, in fact, what was dust, as Berger came in for his pit stop, that was as Berger drove through the Benetton.
Pulled out of the race. Indeed, I'm beginning to wonder how many people are going to finish the German Grand Prix. There were only 12 left running when Martin Brundle stopped, so that's down to 11 now. And you're watching Gerhard Berger on his 22nd lap, having made his tire stop. There is the Ligier behind him in second place. So Berger leads. Tony Jardine has news for us.
Yeah, I'm behind the Benetton pit, and Michael Schumacher's just walked past dejectedly, but there is some good news, because I've had it confirmed by the team that everybody is A-OK. Jos Verstappen is back in the motorhome. He's all right. And one of the mechanics that was very slightly burnt in the face has come out to say, please tell everybody at home we're A-OK.
Good news. Thank you, Tony Jardine. And that is Olivier Panis in the Ligier Renault, hardly believing his luck, I am quite sure, because the car he can see ahead of him, and the only car ahead of him in the race, is the race leader, Gerhard Berger. So, who is this man, Olivier Panis? Well, I can tell you that he comes from Lyon. This is only his 9th Grand Prix, and he's in second place. And he's had a tremendously reliable season. That's Bernard behind him with the red flash. So you saw the first 3 cars, Ferrari, Ligier. This is Eric Bernard, who comes from Istres. This is his 40th Grand Prix, and by no means his first team, because he's driven for Lola, he's driven for Ligier before. He had to drop out of Grand Prix racing because he broke his leg very badly, and it took a long time for it to recover. And that is Martin Brundle, helmet off. He's got a ball patch, I don't think he'll like that. Martin Brundle is being pulled away in the McLaren.
Yeah, it's been a very tough weekend for Martin Brundle, in fact, because after having some handling problems on the first day of qualifying on the Friday, on the Saturday, they've made some changes, as in there comes one of the Ligiers for its pit stop there. That's the Ligier there coming into the stop. Good stop there, very good stop, bearing in mind. Yes, it is Panis, just to cover there. Panis coming out, that should mean that Bernard will come in very soon, as Christian Fittipaldi comes in also for his one stop in the footwork. There goes Panis out of the pits, but Brundle actually had to give his car up in second qualifying to his teammate Mika Häkkinen after Häkkinen had his big off, so he only got a couple of laps in qualifying, and of course now he could have been for sure in a chance of a top 3 position, and he will be mortified to find that sadly he's been stopped once again, and it's been as often as not for engine this year. We don't know what the cause is, but perhaps we can find out.
Well, this is the half-distance lap in the German Grand Prix of Olivier Panis when it came in, has made his tire stop, and at the present moment it's Berger leading. Bernard is second in the second Ligier, in the first Ligier, and Panis is third in the second Ligier. In 4th position, a very well-deserved 4th position, is young Christian Fittipaldi, the nephew of the great double world champion Emerson Fittipaldi, who's doing so well in Indy racing now. and the son of Wilson Fittipaldi. His teammate Gianni Morbidelli, Eric Bernard in the Ligier. That means to say that Parnis, his teammate, has moved up into second place. So the Ligier team waiting, and now on top of the Ligier Renault car. Well, Renault haven't had much joy with Williams here in Germany, because David Coulthard is out of the race. Damon Hill, by the way, is in 10th position. There he is in the pits, and he is still a lap behind the leaders. Watch his pit stop. I'll give you the order, because it's Berger, Parnis, Bernard, first, second and third. Fittipaldi fourth, Morbidelli fifth, Comas is sixth, Beretta is seventh, Dunant is eighth, Brabham is ninth, both the Simtex running and higher than they have ever been. Damon Hill in 10th place, you see him leaving the pits now.
Yes, very good pit stop there from the Williams team on that occasion, but sadly Damon Hill's going to sliding his way through one of these slow second gear chicanes. He's doing about 60 miles an hour. Watch one of those front wheels. Normally they come off the ground round about now. There it goes. See it just pouring in the air. The suspension's on these
problems right at the beginning of the race. Tell us what happened.
Well, I didn't make the best start, and I was a bit slow into second gear. Häkkinen tried to come up my inside and Blundell down the outside, and they're both crazy, so they both tried to squeeze me, not realising they've got another crazy man at the side of me. So with both of them doing that, Häkkinen hit my front wheel, but then went across and took off my front wing and took out Blundell as well. So, you know, he's been involved in a lot of things, and I'm not happy about it.
And your reason for your final retirement?
We have a gearbox problem, so just when we thought things couldn't get worse with having to stop for a nose, then we had a gearbox problem, so I was jammed in top gear.
Well, you're not happy, but hard luck, you're okay. Thank you, David Coulthard.
Swinging criticism of Mika Häkkinen from David Coulthard. A lot of people may well think it was justified, because Häkkinen has certainly been involved in a lot of incidents this year. But Berger is still leading, and he's now in the Ferrari 31 seconds ahead of the Ligier Renault of Olivier Parnis.
Yes, Häkkinen is certainly, undoubtedly, very quick indeed, but he's also impetuous. And from what we saw at the start, from our camera looking at that start, I felt that Häkkinen had swept across the front of Coulthard, and both Coulthard and Mark Blundell seem to have endorsed that. So I think could be fair to say that is the case. Now, of course, Häkkinen was responsible for two other, or certainly involved in two other start line incidents. He touched Senna up the back off the line at the second Grand Prix of the year at Aida in Japan, and that was totally down to his own misjudgment of Senna's braking point. Häkkinen was going too quickly, too far into the corner. And then at Monaco we had the incident, as you may remember, when Hill and Häkkinen tangled. We thought at the time that Hill had actually come up the back of Häkkinen, but indeed there was certainly evidence that Häkkinen had swept across in front of Hill. He's certainly done that this time here at Hockenheim, and I think that maybe the time has come for the stewards to have a look at his driving. He certainly, I think, needs to settle down a bit in his start line antics.
Well, you are looking now at the battle for fourth position between Christian Fittipaldi in the Footwork and his teammate Gianni Morbidelli, with thundering up behind them to unlap himself, hopefully, Damon Hill in the Williams. So Fittipaldi, number 10 is Gianni Morbidelli, who's driven once for the Ferrari team in 1990 in Australia, when he took sixth position in that desperately wet race and got half a point for his trouble. But to have driven for Ferrari at all is a privilege, and to have got half a World Championship point is a double privilege. And here is the man who's got plenty of World Championship points, Gerhard Berger, lap 26 out of 45. And I know, and I'm one of them, that Ferrari enthusiasts all around the world will be keeping their fingers crossed and hoping that Gerhard Berger, who has fought so hard and so long with the Ferrari technicians and management to get the team up to pace again, is going to be able to stay where he is, that the new V12 engine will prove to be reliable, and that Gerhard Berger will win the German Grand Prix, but there are still 19 laps to go.
I must say, I'd love to see him do just that. Gerhard Berger, I thought, was on the verge of retiring after the tragedies at Imola. Of course, Berger and Senna were teammates at McLaren, and very happy teammates for a very long time. And we're actually running with Hill now as he comes up to unlap himself, and he should do that reasonably easily. He won't want to get taken out into the stadium, he goes. But Berger was deeply moved and deeply upset, with understandable reasons, with his close association with Senna. He thought about retiring, and his performances in the early part of the year really had one wondering whether or not that was pretty much towards the front of his mind, but he certainly is not now. He's certainly really got the bit between his teeth, having something of an Indian summer, quite frankly. He's a driver who I thought was a little in his twilight. There's Hill unlapping himself from Gianni Morbidelli, but he's got to do that another time to actually overtake him. He's got to catch one complete lap up to really take that 5th place that is currently occupied by Morbidelli. He'll now come up and go by Fittipaldi, I'm sure, with relative ease. Berger really got the bit between his teeth, really driving very well indeed. He's out-qualified Alesi for the last 2 races, and he indeed is no slouch. He's one of the quickest drivers out there. There goes Hill past the footwork of Fittipaldi there, so he should be charging on his way, trying desperately to make up for lost time.
Fittipaldi 4th then, Morbidelli 5th, they're driving together, and I would imagine there's a replay of Damon Hill at about 200 miles an hour, passing Christian Fittipaldi in the footwork, and I imagine the footwork team will be saying to both Christian Fittipaldi and Morbidelli, do not do anything stupid. This is the 9th Grand Prix of the year. Gianni Morbidelli has yet to finish in a Grand Prix for the footwork team. Fittipaldi's had 4 finishes, including a 4th place in the Pacific Grand Prix at Aida, but the footwork team would dearly love double World Championship points for 4th and 5th places, and look at the gap there is now between Damon Hill and Fittipaldi behind him. So we've heard from almost everybody who's out of the race, from Tony Jardine. We haven't heard from Johnny Herbert. He's with Tony now.
Johnny, you were another one to suffer at the first corner. Give us your version.
Well, I was sort of after the first corner. Made a very good start, and I got ahead of Martin into the first corner, and then he came back at me into it as well. And I tried to fight it with him, and as we went round the corner, almost side by side, as he came over to use his line, I just ran out of room, and his rear wheel went over my front and broke the suspension.
So do you think it was just a problem of the driving rather than that corner, which has claimed a lot of accidents over the weekend?
Well, I think, it hasn't happened in the last couple of years from what I remember. So, it's a corner, but we always have a first corner in the end somewhere. So, the way it happened with Mika as well, I think it was just one of those sort of starts that never went quite right.
Your luck must change soon.
Yeah, I hope so. It'd be nice to have a good race soon anyway.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks.
Well, that was certainly a great shame for Johnny Herbert there, because I thought he could figure pretty well. The Mugen engine was being used to good effect by the Lotus team this time, and has always been reliable, and Johnny Herbert's tended to get good results through reliability rather than through sheer pace, as was demonstrated with a 7th place at the French Grand Prix, and I think he could have done well here, as Damon Hill now comes up to unlap himself from the Simtek on his way.
Yeah, and he's left Simtek team, as you get the replay there of Jean-Marc Gounon being passed by Damon Hill. That's a slow motion of the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger going through the 3rd chicane, the Senna curva, and Gerhard now 34 seconds lead. He hopefully, from his point of view, just has to keep the Ferrari running comfortably and reliably. He can even afford to come in and make a pit stop to take on a 3rd set of tyres and still get out in the lead. But he goes through now to complete his 29th lap.
Well, I really wouldn't expect Gerhard Berger to come in once again.
And if it wins here, and that is Gianni Morbidelli coming in for his footwork tyre stop from 5th position, and if Gerhard Berger does win here, he will match the McLaren record of 104 Grand Prix victories, admittedly from far more races for Ferrari than McLaren. But it's a great, great team that's always been in the World Championship, that has been at the top of sports car racing, is a legendary name with a charismatic personality, and the prancing horse, which you see on the yellow background of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari as he comes through the long right-hander to cross the grid and finish his 30th lap, is a sign of that team. Well, hopefully, as Hill goes through and unlaps himself from the 3rd place man, Eric Bernard in the Ligier. Retirements then, 16 of them: Jean Alesi, Mika Häkkinen, Mark Blundell, Pierluigi Martini, Frentzen, Irvine, Barrichello, Johnny Herbert, Zanardi, Alboreto, Katayama, Coulthard, Verstappen, Michael Schumacher and Martin Brundle.
And as we watch these two cars, you can see the difference, not just between Bernard and Damon Hill, but between the two different chassis, because both of these cars have the same Renault V10 RS6 engine. There we go. There goes Hill into the second chicane, up the inside. Bernard giving him room. Good of him to do that. He should have done it, but nevertheless a number of drivers wouldn't. But these cars have identical engines. They should have more or less identical power, and it gives you a chance to see just how big the difference in performance of the chassis is. And I would think that's probably round about 3 seconds a lap between these two.
Lap 32 now. Berger 37 seconds ahead of Parnis. He's lapping a second faster than the Frenchman, who has every reason to drive a very steady race. The car behind him is his teammate, and he is 7 seconds behind. That is Eric Bernard. So Cesare Fiorio, who is the ex-Ferrari team manager and now the team manager for the Ligier team, with his new technical director Frank Durney, who's moved across from Benetton, because Benetton now, or rather the Benetton management, own the Ligier team. And I'm quite sure that not in their wildest moments would any of the Ligier drivers or management have thought, when they got up this morning, that they might be celebrating second and third places in the German Grand Prix. Well, they might even be doing better than that, but let's hope that Gerhard Berger does not retire.
And we can see, watching Berger with some 14 laps to go now, how he really has adopted, very sensibly, a very neat driving style. He's not using the curbs, whereas in qualifying, and indeed had he been pushed in the race, he would have been using the curbs on the inside of the corner, just trying to cut the corner that little bit more. And he just about does what I said. That was a bit of a relief, I must admit. Berger just immaculately clipping the inside, leaving literally half an inch. And one of the things that never ceases to amaze me watching Formula One is how the drivers can judge the position of the car to within inches at 100, 150 miles an hour. It's one of those subconscious judgments that just comes on, and one just develops that level of skill. Now watch Berger now. He's coming up to the hardest braking point any minute to the first chicane. He will be slowing through from 200 miles an hour down to 100 about now in just 1.7 seconds. Looking at the data logging from these cars, well, that's 1.7 seconds from 200 miles an hour down to 100. And yet to us watching it, it all looks so undramatic. A very different story inside the cockpit, I can assure you.
I don't think I need to tell you, but I'm going to just the same, that the enormous crowd here has gone very, very quiet indeed. There were 62,000 of them here for final practice yesterday to see their hero, Michael Schumacher, who had won in Brazil and Japan and the San Marino Grand Prix, at Monaco, in Canada and in France, and was leading the World Championship by 27 points, even after he'd had 6 taken away for his transgression at Silverstone. They came here today, a rumoured 150,000 of them, with their red, yellow and black flags, waving them euphorically every time he is coming down this long 200-mile-an-hour straight, which is one of two. Well, it's not quite straight, it's a curve actually. Passing the Simtek, that's it on the right, into the chicane. That's the Senna chicane.
And Hill will be trying to get along right up behind Panis there. That's Panis in the leading Ligier to overtake him. I would suggest on the inside of the corner, coming up. His Panis is on the middle of the line. Hill should go to the inside. And Panis is keeping him behind there. Panis could have left the door open on the inside. Hill now up to 8th place, really driving well. And of course the fastest man on the circuit, Gerhard Berger, not needing to push particularly hard at the moment. Hill lapping some 2 seconds faster than Gerhard Berger.
Well, the best that Olivier Panis, there he is, has finished in a Grand Prix so far, is 7th place in Spain. He may well think, of course, that Damon Hill is actually battling for the 2nd place, which Panis is holding at the present moment.
but really should see some classic slipstreaming coming up, because both these cars have the same engine, both have very similar top speeds. Damon Hill's got to tuck into the slipstream, into the toe of that Ligier, and then pull out towards the end of the straight to try and outbrake Panis, taking the inside line. But look, he's certainly not as close as he would be with virtually every other car in the field, and as a consequence, he can't do it. Now, really, Panis has no need to let him by. Don't forget, Hill is used to leading races. Panis is used to letting the leader lap him. But certainly in this situation, we don't have that. Panis will know that Hill is behind him, and he won't want to do anything to help Hill get by.
But he doesn't help there, and Hill goes through just the same on the entrance to the stadium. I think I may have been maligning Panis, actually, because he left plenty of room for Damon to go through. So Damon has unlapped himself from the second, third, fourth, fifth drivers. He hasn't unlapped himself from Gerhard Berger, who is leading and is 45 seconds up the road. Damon Hill now has got 45 seconds in terms of time between himself and the leader, Gerhard Berger, in the Ferrari. Lap 35 out of 45. Berger leads Panis, who is just behind Damon Hill there, by 42 seconds. Panis is about 8 seconds, and that's a replay of the Williams diving inside the Ligier as they enter the stadium. Fittipaldi is still fourth, 21 seconds ahead of his teammate Morbidelli, who is fifth. Comas is sixth, Beretta is seventh, Damon Hill is in eighth position ahead of the two Simtex running at their highest in any Grand Prix, David Brabham ninth and Jean-Marc Gounon 10th.
Well, I think what happened there is clearly Panis did give Damon Hill the inside line. He needn't have done, but it was certainly good of him. It was going to happen within the next two or three corners anyway, so it would have been a little bit silly really for him to try and hold Hill up. But we've heard a story, in fact, a little bit of a clue as to what might have happened with that fire down at the Benetton pit earlier on when Verstappen's car lost its fuel out of the refuelling hose. It seems that there's a possibility there's Jean Alesi there, no doubt with John Todd on the right, looking at following Gerhard Berger's progress very closely indeed. But it seems that when that hose went onto the side of the Benetton, it did not go in squarely. Therefore, that might have depressed the coupling release to allow the fuel to go through, and as it was not on squarely, it sprayed out of the side. Now, that's pure conjecture. We don't know, I hasten to add, but I'm quite sure that the FIA, who have been determined to ensure that refueling is a safe mechanism, as a safe inclusion in the Formula One World Championship, will want to look very carefully to see how that incident did happen to make sure that it cannot happen in the future.
Gerhard Berger going through and finishing. There's the sign. Berger won plus 43.6 over Panis, and
he will not really be able to do any better than his current 8th place. But a grim weekend for the Benetton team, a grim race for the Benetton team after a grim period of a couple of weeks of problems for them with regulations, with protests, and just reflecting back on that, recall that the whole problem for the Benetton team in terms of Michael Schumacher's 2-race ban started when he overtook Damon Hill on the formation lap. That's the lap prior to the Grand Prix start itself. There we are. That's looks like one of the Benetton. That's the Benetton. That's Verstappen there, Jos Verstappen. I'm not entirely sure that it is, but no, it's not. I don't think it is for Jos Verstappen actually.
I think it's the mechanic who has had petrol on him and he's dousing it from his overalls. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's one of the Benetton mechanics. And, well, that is not Verstappen.
Yes, that is Verstappen. Yes. We're looking at him now. That is Verstappen. They're trying to confuse us there. But Verstappen there looking in good shape. And I'm sure he's really been, really must have been a very, very frightening experience being in the middle of that. But back to the Benetton team. Of course, Schumacher overtook Damon Hill on the formation lap at Silverstone. That's the final warm-up lap before the race starts. Overtaking is not allowed on that lap.
And he's lapping marginally faster. That's the Ferrari pit. That is the sole Ferrari. And Jean Alesi must be really rueing what happened to him on that first lap, because he could have been a comfortable second very easy. Very good indeed for another Grand Prix victory. That would be his 9th in his superb career, and his first for Ferrari since he joined last year.
Of course, one of the other facts from this race is that if Gerhard Berger does win this Grand Prix, as it looks like he will at the moment, That means that Ferrari's tally will reach 104.
Damaged his neck, broke his neck, and then had to recover from that. Scored 1 point, and that's one of the Simtecs out. It is David Brabham, unfortunately, and that would have been his heart's mind, but he couldn't. He might well be saying, Jean, you could have been there, you should have been there. But going back to Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher would make a fine pairing for Benetton and give them what the team desperately needs, and it hasn't got this year. 2 good drivers. So, stay tuned and we'll let you know as soon as we know ourselves what's happening to that rumour. And what's happening to Gerhard Berger is that he is now completing his 40th lap. He has 5 laps, including the one that he's about to start, of this 4.25 mile circuit. 21 miles if my mental arithmetic is right. He sees the sign which tells him he's 48 seconds ahead of Parnis and 58 seconds ahead of Eric Bernard. So the very amiable, enormously likeable Gerhard Berger, who has had such a dreadful 1994, is seeing it start to improve. It started appallingly for him at Imola when his countryman, the very likeable Roland Ratzenberger.
Expect that is there we are. That's David Brabham there in the Simtech, or rather.
Who is it? Let's have a look. It's the second Simtech. It's Gunon. So Jean-Marc Gunon out. That's the 18th retirement, and I'm desperately sorry for the Simtech team because they've had a dreadful year one way and another, including having David Brabham nearly totally destroy a car in testing at Silverstone last week, and they had to build a new one up very quickly for him for this race, and they had their highest places in a Grand Prix in 9th and 10th places with Gunon and Brabham, only to retire. So there's 18 retirements now out of the 26 who started. Gerhard Berger, lap 42, leading comfortably, 45 lap race.
Yes, just 8 runners now, and we did say there'd be. Let's have a look at this. This is the slow motion through the chicane of Olivier Panis in the Ligier. And again, I suspect we'll see that left front wheel pouring in the air any minute as the virtually rigid suspensions. There it goes, up what must be a couple of inches, bouncing around. The drivers are finding the cars here to be bumpier than they felt all year. They're very low on downforce. And in terms of the grip level, I must say that driving with a car set up in low downforce configuration, as indeed we do have here at Hockenheim, together with the latest changes, that's Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda there, double world champion now, heavily involved with the Ferrari team. The difference between driving a car in this sort of Hockenheim configuration with the latest regulations compared to how they would have been earlier in the year at some of the slower circuits where you had more downforce, it's like the drivers now are driving in the wet compared to driving in the dry with the higher levels of downforce that they had earlier on in the season. It really is quite a big difference, even though it is not particularly apparent to us.
So, you just saw the Ferrari team looking impassive. Jean Todt, the team manager, had to completely reconstruct the whole organisation from the top downwards. That's Alesi, with Luca Montezemolo, the man who, with Niki Lauda, built the Ferrari team to its success in the 1970s. And Niki Lauda was a double world champion with Ferrari and then went on to become another one with McLaren. Montezemolo had to replace many people at Ferrari who he judged were not doing their jobs properly. They brought in new technicians, new designers. John Barnard, the Englishman who had been with Benetton, with Ferrari before, and had helped bring McLaren to their position of eminence in Formula One racing, rejoined Ferrari. And then Gustav Brunner, the Austrian, who's responsible for many of the design changes, including those big entries to the side pods that you're looking at now. And a new titanium gearbox, a very advanced one, which has overcome the big problem that Ferrari had, which was weight distribution and handling. And because of that, the chassis is right. And then the Ferrari engine man got the new V12 going well, and the package looks absolutely superb. Niki Lauda is a consultant for Ferrari, as well as running his own airline and umpteen other things as well, and a quite incredible man. And they are all watching their man now on lap 44 out of 45, Ferrari enthusiasts, keep your fingers crossed. Cars have dropped out 53 seconds behind Gerhard Berger.
Well, it really has been the most extraordinary race of 1994, after that start line incident, which had a number of accidents taking part within it. There was absolute chaos that eliminated some 13 cars. Now, following on from that, the casualties have generally been in the midfield area, but at the front we've seen both Williams cars affected by it. Damon Hill having a problem when he was hit up the back. David Coulthard losing a front wing, although he subsequently lost his gearbox. But Ferrari really have come through here. They've showed real progress. Berger pole position and to win the race. And Lacey second on the grid. Engine problems on lap 1, sadly, but a grim weekend for Benetton, with Schumacher retiring with the blown engine, and we suspect, and Verstappen exiting the race with that dramatic inferno when the refueling all went so wrong.
Well, you've seen the Ferrari mechanics. They are all ready for their moment of delirious joy and euphoria as Gerhard Berger exits the Senna curve. There they are, looking expectantly down the road to see the first Ferrari victory since 1990. And he's into the stadium now. This is going to be a historic victory for Gerhard Berger and Ferrari, and starts off the second half of the 1994 Grand Prix season, the World Championship, on a fabulously high note. Gerhard Berger, say the flags. I hope the German crowd are going to be generous, because if Schumacher can't win, they surely want Gerhard Berger to. And Gerhard Berger crosses the line, takes the checkered flag, wins the German Grand Prix, and Ferrari equal McLaren's record of Grand Prix victories. You saw the mechanics, you see Gerhard Berger, and you see Jean Todt. He is the man, he's the disciplinarian, he is the martinet who has built the Ferrari team from a disparate collection of elements into a cohesive, hard-punching, well-working organisation. And a wonderful, wonderful day for Ligier, who have been through such hard times in recent years. Guy Ligier himself out, Cyril Derouve, the next owner, out. Now it's owned by Benetton. Flavio Briatore, the head man of Benetton, may not see his own cars come home, but he's seeing the Ligiers that he's responsible for coming through second and third. There is Olivier Panis, his first podium finish, the European Formula 3000 champion of 1993. And behind him, Eric Bernard, who has hung on to get his place with Ligier, and he's seen it come good today. He finishes in third position, in front of, hopefully from the Footwork team's point of view, Christian Fittipaldi, who will finish in fourth place. Gianni Morbidelli, that's Frank Durney in the middle. That's Frank Durney, ex-Benetton. And you see now on the run-down lap, Gerhard Berger. And subject to official confirmation, the results of the German Grand Prix are Gerhard Berger wins by nearly 55 seconds from Olivier Panis, Ligier. Then Eric Bernard, Ligier. Fourth, Fittipaldi in the Footwork. Fifth is Gianni Morbidelli. Sixth is Eric Kermas, and he's just crossed the line as I talk to you in the Larousse for his second point of the year. Seventh, his teammate, Olivier Beretta, who has been lapped. Eighth, Damon Hill, who finished just 2.2 seconds behind Beretta and was the last man to go the distance in Germany. So an enormous number of retirements, 18 of them altogether. But certainly and that's Martin Brundle walking in on the right-hand side of your picture as Olivier Beretta respectfully takes up position in the Larousse, in which he finished in seventh place behind German Grand Prix winner Gerhard Berger. What a wonderful result.
Absolutely, and to be on pole position and take the race win really is very, very special indeed for a driver, and Gerhard will feel that was entirely justified from all the hard work they've done. They took the gamble to run the 75-degree engine. That's the latest engine, and after a Lacey dropped out, they may well have had some worries about doing so in the race, but it paid off, and I think that Ferrari and Berger can both believe, and with justification, that they've got that race win here today, despite anything that may have happened with retirements behind them. Of course, you can see the two French blue Ligiers behind. They undoubtedly have benefited from the failures that have gone on mechanically, the engine problems, but particularly that start line accident that eliminated so many cars. but they've been there when it mattered. They both finished the race, and Ligier, I must confess, do have, despite their lack of pace that they've had certainly previously, do have reliability for them. And they've shown that to good effect, and they've shown the importance of being reliable, of keeping going, of not making mistakes, because this kind of thing can, and here has, happened. And without that, the Ligier team would have lost their chance to get the second and third. Saw a glimpse of Martin Brundle then. You may wonder why he's still walking back, having retired from the race some halfway through, but having been in that situation myself, I can tell you that if you drop out of the race right at the far end of the track here, it is a very long walk back, and a long time to contemplate the what might have happened. And clearly for Martin Brundle that could well have been a third position. And we've got Niki Lauda now with Tony Jardine.
Спортивную борьбу, а вот главный герой нашей борьбы выпрастывается из ремней безопасности. Вот тут приветствует он двумя руками. Наступил просто момент торжества. Ура, ребята, наконец-то Феррари на первом месте. И судьи здесь на повороте его хлопают по плечу, обнимают. И вот он так, разминая затекшие ноги, бежит туда, где ждут его друзья. Команда Benetton, как вы видите по таблице...
Why are you seeing Gerhard Berger running in? Well, he stopped on the track, and I suspect that he's run out of petrol, because I can think of no other reason why he would do that. But you can see that all of a sudden he's found a lot of adrenaline. Now, that's the Parc Fermé, where the cars have to go for technical examination after the race. The two Ligiers there, the Ferrari, of course, not there.
No, of course, that doesn't matter.
But Tony Jardine has got John Alesi with him.
Так прошел девятый этап чемпионата мира. Следующий этап, я просто упреждаю вас, состоится в Будапеште. Состоится этот этап на трассе как раз не такой скоростной, как эта, на трассе медленной, и, может быть, другие команды, другие машины, другие гонщики будут иметь там преимущество. В свое время один из биографов Лауды спросил его: скажи, пожалуйста, Мики, ты можешь сказать, какая победа была самой красивой, какая была самой важной для тебя? И он ответил: всегда была самая последняя. Вот самая красивая и самая важная победа.
So there is Gerhard Berger. He's being towed in now. They've got to get the car into Parc Fermé, of course. And Gerhard, we want him back as quickly as possible so that he can attend the interview of himself, Olivier Panis and Eric Bernard, the Ferrari driver, and two Ligier drivers in the interview room together.
Yes, of course, the cars that finish the race must all go back to the Parc Fermé at the end to be scrutineered, but they do not have to get there under their own steam necessarily. But having said that, the team are not allowed to touch that Ferrari of Gerhard Berger until it is finished scrutineering, until it has been put into the Parc Fermé by the marshals, and only after that will the team be allowed to touch the car.
What a wonderful and enjoyable win. A wonderful win for Gerhard Berger. He really is a lovely man with a superb sense of humour and an implacable will. And it's thanks to him and his patience, his decision to go to Ferrari and to help them with all the experience that he's got in his racing career. And particularly, I'm sure he would want me to say, the lessons he learned from Ron Dennis with McLaren and his late great teammate Ayrton Senna with McLaren, both of whom Gerhard Berger always pays tribute to whenever he can. And he said many times what Ferrari needed was the discipline, the organisation and the administration that McLaren had and are always so superb at. And I hope to be able to teach them some lessons. And that's it, Gerhard Berger. Listen to the crowd. On to the top step of the podium. Every Grand Prix driver's dream.
And now for the winning constructor.
Well, a great and memorable victory for Gerhard, Berger and for Ferrari in Germany. Real encouragement for the Ligier team as he receives the magnificent Waterford Glass Winged Horse Trophy to take home with him to Austria. And I'm glad to tell you that in spite of that frightening looking fire, nobody was seriously hurt in it. It's been a dramatic and exciting and interesting German Grand Prix.
И вручение призов – обязательный ритуал. Мы привыкли к нему, как и к душу из шампанского, которым обдают друг друга победитель и призеры. А здесь мы видим бурлящую толпу, которая размахивает флагами, которая до сих пор еще переживает этот момент. И где-то эти маленькие колесики торжества вертятся, быстро вертятся в каждом человеке, не успевая остановиться. И, конечно, самих трех. Возвращение этих колесиков они излили в струях шампанского, ищут себе же.
Special personality and character, fun-loving, a little bit mad like many Austrians, but a great asset to Formula One. At one point, you know, I felt that Gerhard, after Imola, the loss of Ayrton Senna, may well decide to retire. In my heart, I think I wanted him to retire, but seeing him up there, his judgment to continue was absolutely right.
So, Gerhard Berger, Oliver Panis and Eric Bernard. We will talk to them after the break here on Eurosport. Stay with